Hey guys, Jim Vinosky with Manufacturing Talks here. Hey, the tiny home movement may be petering out, but the need for housing isn't. It's only getting more and more challenging. And so I'm really happy today to be bringing you a show about a new solution. And it comes by way of our guest, a guy named Bob Worsley. He is, among many other things, founder of a company called Zennihome, and he's here to tell you all about his unique solution to our housing crisis. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
PYS Media, your digital media relations agency. Public relations, website design, digital marketing. You get found by the customers and talent who need your solutions. You get media placements in top publications, the best job candidates coming to your website, a digital presence that gets you found by the right people. Call 616-298-8798 to get started today.
All right, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host. And as always, thanks to our sponsor, DYS Media. Great guys there. Look them up online. They can help you out. I'm really happy to be joined today by Bob Worsley. So he is the founder and CEO at a company called Zennihome. As you heard in my intro, they're focused on helping us solve our housing crisis, and in a really cool way, I might add. So welcome, Bob.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thanks for being here. It's great to have you. You've got such a really interesting background. I think this show could go on forever, but we don't have forever. So let me just start out by letting you tell us about your background, what you've done before you got to Zennihome, and then how you got doing what you're doing today.
Okay, great. I started out as a CPA at Pricewaterhouse, as have two of my other board members. So we're all PwC people. I started a company called SkyMall when I was 35 and ran that company, took it public, and we became a $500 million market cap fund company. Eventually, we sold it to Rupert Murdoch, who wanted to make it part of the cable TV industry and bring what we called e-commerce on the internet, bring T-commerce to TV.
Yep.
And didn't work out that way. People went with internet and not with TV to do shopping. But then after that, I built a biomass facility. So we're in the power business. We have land and minerals we develop as well. But then I ran for office and became a senator here in Arizona for 3 terms and became aware of some of the social issues we have that are plaguing us: homelessness, affordability, etc. And then we also had the largest coal plant west of Mississippi that was taken down by the 5 utilities that owned it up on the Navajo Nation. I started a company called Zennihome to address affordable housing and building these things completely finished and completely furnished in the factory so that they're really rapidly deployable. And we started actually by building these at that coal plant that was torn down in Page, Arizona, and have started reemploying the employees that were let go from the coal plant, the Navajo workers. So we have 125 employees now, and we're off to the races.
So just to sum up, then, you've mostly been slacking your whole life, and you're trying to find some traction here. Wow.
I'm an underperforming, boring person.
Right.
My wife,
right.
I'm 67, and she said, "Why are we still doing this?" And I said, we decided I had one more startup in me after I retired from the Senate in 2019. So here we are, and it's a rodeo. This is the most exciting business, the largest business I've ever taken on to start. So this is incredibly fun and interesting, but frustrating, given how hard it is to get going.
Well, and it's an amazing story for your background, and it's, to me, this latest chapter being, like you say, even more amazing. Caught my eye for the story we did for Forbes, and I just think it's such a cool approach. So, let's talk about some of the inspiration for what you've come up with here. It's not just your run-of-the-mill tiny home, small offering for people who can't afford much. So talk about how you approached it and some of the features that you've got designed in here.
Thank you, Jim. There are some we're working with that actually believe we've created a new category. Um, there's site-built housing of all varieties. We've seen that over the years. And Jim, with your tremendous interest and expertise in manufacturing, we know that there's been homes that have been built in factories.
Mm-hmm.
George Romney started the HUD program in earnest under Nixon. And because he was a car manufacturer and CEO of American Motors, we all remember the Rambler, right?
Right.
And he thought, why aren't we building houses like I built Ramblers? And so he started the idea and built 18,000 manufactured homes in factories, recruited IBM and all kinds of companies not in the industry to try to get their expertise. And Nixon fired him, and then Watergate happened. So HUD never really took this kind of leadership after that 5 years when George Romney was running it. What happened is the Swedes took it seriously, and they now build 80% of all their homes in factories.
Oh, wow.
America only does 5%. So what happened is that we really lost our way and didn't do it really sincerely and earnestly. So now today we're 5% prefab homes, still 95% built on site. So we're excited and feel like the HUD effort was a low end effort and not built to stack for multi-story apartments. And we feel like a lot of the tiny homes and modular projects that are wood based aren't really addressing the market the proper way. So we think we have a new category. And Jim, the other thing we did that was really different is that we tried to go small, centered around the dimensions of shipping containers. We don't convert shipping containers, but we think that the dimension has been accepted worldwide logistically, so that you can ship on trains, trucks, and ships if you stay within that dimension. So we're honoring that dimension. And then the other thing we're doing is we're saying this is kind of a small space. So let's build around an automated multi-purpose room that has automated furniture and transforming robotic furniture so that the home doesn't feel small. It actually can do everything a larger home can do. And that whole combination of steel, stacking, robotics is a new category, we believe, that hasn't really been invented yet.
Yep. There's so much to peel back here. First of all, let me say, for our YouTube audience, we will have some overlaid pictures and inserted videos while we talk so they can see what you're talking about. For those of you who aren't on video, we'll have links in the description so you can go out and find those pictures and those videos that Zennihome has out there so you can also see what's going on. So there's a few things here I want to drill into. First of all, you talk about factory built, and you're right. That's part of what sparked my interest, being a longtime manufacturing guy. But, for the general audience, people think factory built homes and they're thinking trailer homes and, the kind of crappy construction pre-builts, which, you shouldn't disparage at all because those things have provided low cost housing for people who need it. But what you're doing is not that. So talk about that a little bit.
Yes, you've got, I would say there's HUD homes, which were given during HUD's era. They were given a kind of standard to meet in terms of insulation, res factors, glass quality, etc. And so people just went right up to that bare minimum, and that's all they built.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, these are the homes that disappear in hurricanes and tornadoes. They just don't hold up. Yep. Some are built with 2x2 wood studs, really cheap. And so that's trailer homes and some early manufacturing homes. Then came along RVs, and Indiana has that huge hub around RVs of all kinds. And so you have HUD homes, manufactured homes, and then RVs. And the category is kind of managed by a federal standard. a federal code. When you get to site-built homes, they're all code-based, International Building Code, International Residential Code, and they're all based on local city and state laws around those codes. And those are prescriptive. I mean, those are very high quality plumbing, very high quality windows, etc. And every 3 years, the International Building Code gets upgraded. And so it's just a constantly improving versus a 1978 HUD code that hasn't really changed much. So this is a very different product.
Right.
And we're trying to avoid wood, and we're trying to go for stackability because we do think that if we're going to go advanced manufacturing and go all in like cars, we need to start with a really robust quality chassis and building system, subsystem after that.
Yep. And so you've designed it for manufacturing, which we'll dive into a little more later, because it's not just your ordinary manufacturing you're talking about. But before we do that, you just mentioned the stacking. So you've got 2 basic models that you're producing now. Tell us about that stacking and that modularity and how things go together.
We concluded that 2 20-foot container size makes a very nice studio apartment with the right technology. It has everything in it you need to live in 320 square feet. And then we have one that's 40 foot long, the typical 40-foot container size. And we always marry 2 together because we don't think you can live in 8 feet wide. When you take walls and everything out of the 8 feet, you end up living in something less than 7 feet wide. So we marry the 2. We have an open side that marries with another or mates with another unit. And so you're 16 foot wide, less walls. So that's what we do. Those are the 2 units. And what we tried to do is make those so we constrained ourselves to those 2 sizes and 2 modules, 2 units, so that we could basically, we call it pop, snap, and stack. You can pop it down on a lot as just a standalone casita in your backyard, poolside casita or ADU. You can snap them together and create a 5-bedroom home with 3 bathrooms, and it looks beautiful. It's what Blue Home has done in California. We can do that exact look with our 2 2-bedroom units and one 1-bedroom unit, and with a beautiful U-shaped covered common area. And then stack is they're designed with chases and engineered so that they can stack together, and they just bolt together. They don't need any exoskeleton steel. All the steel you need to go up 60, 70 feet in the air is inside the walls and engineered to handle a hurricane in Miami, an earthquake in downtown Los Angeles, and a huge snowstorm in Park City, Utah. Those were the 3 criteria we gave the structural engineers for these 2 boxes, these 2 units, and they bolt together, and they can withstand those kind of Mother Nature forces against them. So they really can go almost anywhere in North America.
And so that's another really cool feature that got my attention, was that ability to use these 2 basic modules and build everything from that studio home up to many multi-family dwelling apartment building, essentially.
Or a large home.
Yeah, really, really interesting concept. And I just love the way you guys have brought it together. You talked about the size there. You're talking in hundreds of square feet, and that's got to be, having some people cringing. And so talk about how you've designed these things now to live larger.
Every square foot, Jim, in these units were designed to have 3 different purposes. So we all probably went to church in churches that had big multi-purpose rooms for a big feeding area or a basketball area or a play or something. And so these homes were designed with multi-purpose. We said every square foot in these units have to have 3 different purposes. So our 2-bedroom home, for example, has 1 room that becomes a master bedroom. It's a beautiful living room, entertainment room. It's also an office. It also includes a walk-in closet, all which collapses with robotics from MIT, and is a very nice big 16 by 16 room. Then you have the other end of that 2-bedroom unit that is a dining room, a bedroom, and another office. And so you just don't have homes built normally. We have single purpose rooms when we
Right.
site build homes. And we're saying, if we're going to build something in a factory, let's build something so that every room could be used for 3 different things so that it can be smaller. We can build off of a chassis, a metal chassis like a car. But the just like cars have lots of multi-purpose. You take you take seats out, you have a big open area to haul things, etc. So the whole idea here was design it around commercialized robotic furniture. There's several companies out there doing it, which have some really lovely items. There's a Google spinoff called Bumblebee. They have some lovely furniture that transforms rooms. And then MIT had this spin out that we fell in love with called Ori Living.
Yep.
And they're taking small, very small apartments in New York City and San Francisco, and they're putting this in to make them feel bigger and multi-purpose. And so we're taking that same concept and building in the factory a home around that furniture, which no one has ever done before.
Yep. And so again, those of you on YouTube are seeing this in some videos that I'll add. If you're not seeing this in YouTube and you're listening on a podcast, do go out to the links I provide and check out how that automation works, because it's really, really fascinating and amazing, and truly does make these homes live a lot larger than those dimensions that Bob mentioned earlier. Now, let's go back to manufacturing. You've talked now about the technology you're using in the house itself, but you've also designed the process for making these homes to be made not with just, dark, dirty, dangerous old manufacturing, but modern, new, advanced manufacturing techniques. So tell us a little more about that.
Well, first of all, Jim, we are being inspired by the new electric vehicle manufacturing facilities, which I would argue in your field that you've studied. There was an internal combustion engine factory that was certain ways. And then there's kind of the new Tesla, all the other companies that are building. There's 10 or 15 of them that are making electric cars.
Nikola and those guys.
Nikola, Lucid, Rivian, etc. So if you look at those factories, in my opinion, those are the cream de la cream. Those are the most advanced manufacturing facilities. So instead of going to a Ford factory or even a Toyota factory and looking at what a beautiful job they did as they kind of evolved, we're trying to go to the guys that are starting from scratch and building new factories for electric car manufacturing. And as we've learned, they can push out a Model Y in Shanghai every 30 seconds. The biggest, largest, most successful housing manufacturing company in America today can't do more than 5 homes. So now look at that. In 24 hours, you can do 5 homes, but yet every 30 seconds, we're making a very sophisticated car that actually has many more parts and pieces and has to pass safety standards of blowing yourself up into a wall. I mean, things a home would never have to meet, standards they would never have to meet. So we are going right to the end. And so we hired Monroe Engineering out of Windsor, Ontario, who does General Motors, Ford, Toyota, and Tesla. Sandy Monroe is doing podcasts all the time with Elon about tearing apart a Tesla Model Y and criticizing how he builds it. And you could do it this way. And they have a lot of back and forth. If you look at Sandy Monroe and Elon, they talk a lot. So we hired Sandy Monroe's firm. They came in and they said, here's what we're recommending to Zennihome. Do not do 1 ounce of automation in your factory for at least 1 year. Do everything manually and make sure that your model, your units are constructible, perfected, things, all the parts and pieces and sub-assemblies come together. Do not even put a crane in the building. Use the building and run these units. We're now on unit 18 right now, and we're still learning. It's hard to get into this place and put in this plumbing. We had to move the toilet a couple inches a couple weeks ago. It was just too hard to get in there and do the repairs if you had a problem with plumbing. So we're doing exactly what Sandy Monroe's firm told us to do. Figure that out, and then bring us back in. And then we've also hired a firm out of Sweden who consults with all these big factories in Sweden that are building homes. And between the two firms, this next year, we'll do what we call a digital twin, Jim.
Yeah.
It'll be an actual factory with tack times and everything figured out. What robots are we going to have do what? Where will the subassemblies get subassembled and come into the chassis like a car? What will those lines look like? Where will the bottlenecks be? And you kind of do that in a digital twin kind of way.
Yep.
And then you start building the factory. You've worked for a year or two on your model, and you've made sure it was constructible. The tweaks are worked out there. And now you build a factory to build that chassis and build those subassemblies and finish those. That means no wet, no paint, no sheetrock, no mud. And you go into all these other factories, they're still using sheetrock and mud. The guys are walking around in 2-3 inches by the end of the shift, 2 or 3 inches of sheetrock mud, as they try to put sheetrock mud on sheetrock on a cassette that's going to be a ceiling component in the factory. And they have it so it comes down low enough that people can work on it. That's all great. But they're just living in filth, and the factories are filled with dust. And Toyota's rule is if it's a dusty factory, you can't build quality.
Yep.
If it's a dirty factory, you can't build quality. And then you look at Sandy Monroe's 10 principles for an advanced manufacturing facility. They're violating almost every principle in all the housing factories today. So that's what they told us. If you're going to do advanced manufacturing, it's got to be super clean. That means you have to do other building materials to get rid of the dust, the sheetrock, the paint, the stucco, things like that. And that's what we're doing. And then the digital twin will become a real live factory. We know we can build a factory that'll make 25 homes a day, which would be the fastest factory in the world.
Yep.
And that'll be our first fully automated factory in Page.
It's really interesting to me. As you were talking, I was thinking about this series I'm watching, War Factories, about World War II and the enormous production capacity of the U.S. that helped win the war. And one of the factories that one of the automakers made to build bombers wasn't performing, and they got one of the top guys who had made one that was performing very well to go in there. And he identified something very similar to what you're talking about with that advice to kind of go through the process for a year and identify all the ins and outs of doing it before you automate it. They kept changing the design of the plane they were making. And so they were constantly having to retool the factory as they're trying to run it. Well, of course, it didn't run worth a crap trying to do that. They lock the design, boom, off to the races. So,
and Jim, that one principle you just said, lock the design.
Yep.
That is the biggest problem in factories that build HUD homes or manufactured or modular homes today.
Right.
Autovol is 5 years old in Nampa, Idaho, $110 million, $39 million of robots. And guess what? Half the robots aren't working. Do you know why? Because the wonderful owner, Caleb, who owns that factory, Autovol in Boise, has not constrained his architects to fix the plan and set it and don't allow it to move. So every one of his projects, every apartment project in California he builds in Boise and goes to California is different. Every architect puts their hand on it. They want to change it.
Sure.
And so what happens is the robots can't be programmed to do the same thing forever.
Right.
They have to change. They have to stop. Well, this particular apartment building has a 6-foot wall here, and it has an 8-foot ceiling instead of a 8'6" ceiling. And the guys are in there with sledgehammers banging wood around, trying to make room for an AC vent that wasn't anticipated to be there.
Yeah.
And so in the industry now, they call these snowflakes. Every housing factory in America today is still building snowflakes.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. And how in the world are you ever going to be able to do a World War II factory that couldn't perform? And suddenly, when they froze the plan and said, this is what we're going to build now, guess what? We could put more birds in the air than the Nazis or British or anyone else combined could do.
Right.
America could put more birds on the ground and put more war machines on the ground because we did it right.
Yep.
And we haven't done that yet in the housing industry.
Yeah, we keep having to relearn valuable history, but you nailed it. Another thing that became very clear in our earlier discussions is your personal appreciation for sustainability, for green. And I know you've designed in features in that regard with these homes. So tell us about that angle.
Well, we're actually, Jim, going even further now with a product called Planet Wise, WISE, Planet Wise. And this is something built in the factory that could be dropped anywhere in the world, in the most remote place in the world, and would not need any utilities. So W is for water. We work with several companies that do atmospheric water harvesting units. They're very cost effective now. So we could actually harvest from the atmosphere. There's rivers of water going over us all the time.
Yep.
In above us, but we're always looking for that river or that water aquifer that we can drill down into with the well. But today we know how to reach that humidity that's in the air. So water harvesting out of the atmosphere will provide us with a non-grid tied water source. I is for the internet. We're using Elon Musk Starlink system. You don't need to connect anywhere to Google Fiber or anything else. There's no wires needed. Just like Africa stopped putting in telephony, wired telephony, because everybody just went to cell phones. Cell phones enabled you to just go to a tower somewhere and you have telephony. You don't need to bring a twisted pair telephone line into every home. Nobody does that anymore. Who has a ground-based phone?
Right. Yep.
A landline. Everybody does mobile phones. So the I is internet through the Starlink system. The S is for sewer. We're working with a German company called Busa Engineering, who has about a $10,000 unit that's a bioreactor and hyperfilter system where you can literally take sewer out of your septic tank and have drinking water, quality water come out the other side. And so we're excited about that, where you could literally have 98% water reuse in your home. And then the E is electricity. I've lived off grid in a ranch that we own since 1996. Solar, lithium ion batteries, inverters. There's no reason we cannot live off grid. So if you take all those and install those in the factory, into the home, you basically could take a home that's very modern and put it anywhere, and people could have the standard of living you have in downtown Austin, Texas, connected to all the beautiful amenities that we have that don't need to be wired and hard plumbed and everything to your home anymore, because technology has arrived. Our plumbing in our units, for example, Jim, we have 2 plumbing systems. Why doesn't every home in America have 2 plumbing systems? They do it in New Zealand. Why are we not doing it in America? And so you have a gray water system where your shower, your washer dryer, your sinks go to. And then you have black water system where your toilet, and if you have a garbage disposal that has a lot of food you're going to chew up, it goes to the black water system. So when you come to the outside of our units, we have 2 pipes for sewer. And gray water on Amazon for $450, you can get a charcoal filter, take your gray water and use it to water your plants in the yard. You can take the black water now with the Busa system out of Germany and get drinking water, quality water out of that. So the idea is that we would take 98% of the water we harvest from the atmosphere and you reuse it and reuse it and reuse it. No one's doing that kind of stuff. Not to mention 6 inches of insulation plus 2 inches of foam insulation for thermal breaks, giving you 30 plus R30 plus in ceilings,
Yep.
walls, floors in the home to give you very efficient and really high efficient glass, etc. So we think we're building something that's going to be incredibly energy efficient. I just paid an electrical bill on our models in Mesa, Arizona, 110 degrees for record number of days. Last month's power bill was $10. We have a
Well,
10 kW solar system, 10 hours of battery, inverters, and we're doing a net metering deal with the utility, and we're paying $10 for electricity. My
yeah,
electric bill in my home in Arizona has always been in the neighborhood of $1,000 in Arizona.
yeah,
Now they're bigger homes, but it's always been a huge expense in Arizona to cool your home in the summer.
yep. So, and no one can accuse you of, trying to foist solutions that you're not willing to try out yourself on others, right?
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. I mentioned in my intro before the show, the tiny home movement, and you've got so much incorporated here that were the values of that movement, but that movement kind of petered out because things weren't necessarily livable, and they kind of conflated this idea of being mobile and having a house. And sounds like you've just really narrowed down on some core principles that market valued, and that they've kind of drifted away from that world. And I think your timing is just going to be impeccable for capturing, the people who now realize, yeah, it's pretty cool to have a fixed place to be, but I still want to live by those same values that brought me to that.
Well, in 100 square feet or 190 square feet, tiny homes. I had a lady come through our units the other day, and she said, I've looked at tiny homes before. This is small, but this isn't tiny.
Right.
This is very livable. She said, I think I could actually live with my husband without having marriage counseling every week, which a tiny home would require.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Well, and so you've got great concepts, and I think you're just extremely well positioned. And obviously, like any company, you have to fund this. So I know you're crowdfunding now. So where do you stand with that, and where do you see that going in the future?
Yeah, we did a $6 million seed round last year. And then I've done a lot of angel investing myself from my previous companies. Some of the proceeds from those other companies have done well. But this year we decided we would do a $25 million traditional Series A round of funding. This is what normally comes after a seed round. And again, we went to Wilmer Hale, which does venture capital, Series A rounds. And we said, look, the Silicon Valley Bank just failed. Republic just failed. Everybody's nervous. The venture capital firms are nervous. The bank they had their money in just failed. And so everybody was just kind of saying, what do we do? We made the decision that this $25 million round would be what we call a concurrent offering. So we have 5 million of the 25 million that's on WeFunder as a crowdfunding round, and you can invest as little as $250. And that's the typical crowdfunding kind of thing. Filed a Form C with the SEC, and we're doing that the last couple of months. We've got over 700 investors now, well over $1 million raised in that crowdfunding. Then we have a concurrent Reg D offering, which requires accredited investor, more than $25,000 minimum investment. And then we made that even more complicated by saying we're going to do opportunity zone funding. Oh, yeah. And so if you put your money into this and we make a lot of money off of Zennihome, you'll never pay income tax on this gain, because we're building our first projects in our factory in opportunity zones. Donald Trump put these in place in 2017, and they have attracted a lot of capital with the tax deferral and the tax exemption of that instrument. So now we have 5 million in crowdfunding and 20 million that can be your choice. Do you want to put it in the opportunity zone Reg D offering, or just a regular Reg D offering because you don't have capital gains to shelter? And then some of the venture capitalists and others we were talking to said, well, we'd like to do a convertible note that converts into these preferred stock. So we made that available. So no one that we know of has ever done a concurrent offering of 4 offerings, and they're all at the same price. So the $250 small investor is investing at $7.11 a share, as well as the big venture capital fund that's investing at $7.11 a share. And we
Wow.
think it's a very democratic and flexible way for people that are looking to shelter gains.
Hmm.
They can come in the opportunity zone, or they can do a deferred note, and in 18 months it'll convert into preferred shares at the same price. But it gives people whatever their appetite is for investing, they can participate in any one of those 4 concurrent offerings. And we had to hire 3 different law firms that knew crowdfunding. One was a
Right.
crowdfunding, one was a Reg D, and one was an opportunity zone law firm. And they didn't know the other guy's rules. So they
Mhm.
all had to work together and get one offering over the finish line. And it's really fun because every day people are coming in and investing in different ones of these buckets, but it accomplishes for us the same thing. It's the same dilution, the same price per share, but depending on someone's particular investor appetite, they can go into one of the 4 buckets.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised. It sounds like nothing Zennihome does will not be unique and democratic and innovative. Financing as well. Okay, so
We would like that.
yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the future. You've got the 2 units that you're producing now. You've got actually models out there people can visit in Arizona. And is the plan to go forward with those units? And I know also you plan on future factories kind of in the corners of the country to focus on those 2 as you establish the additional production capacity. Do you see someday expanding beyond that? What do you see as the future for Zennihome?
Thank you, Jim. We have every week a Zennihome X meeting. If you ever want to join our team, and that's where we put together what's our future pieces going to look like. What are new smart home features, smart home technology? We're starting something called HOST, housing as a service, like SaaS, and
Yeah.
accounting as a service, and other people doing things as a service. So housing as a service. How would we break the timeshare model? Et
Oh, yeah.
cetera. And then we're
Yep.
looking at new chassis. How could we make the chassis so that it's actually even more flexible than what we have today, and you can actually do a 90-degree turn and stack things so that you have a very architecturally interesting building going up. I don't know if you've ever seen Moshi. He did in Canada during the 60s, during the World Fair. He had a very interesting architecture. And it looks like shipping containers, but they're, instead of stacked like they're normally stacked, they're kind of not on a 90-degree angle and then another 90-degree angle. And so you have a very interesting looking building. We're looking at a chassis that would accommodate that and would carry the load structurally to the ground. And our chases would still work with plumbing, electrical, sewer coming down through the chases to the ground. So
Yep.
we're looking at that. There's just so much new stuff happening that's what our Zennihome X meetings are all about. I think we're going to still try to stay to the two modules, and then just look at different ways to put them together to
Okay.
give somebody something bigger or something that stacks higher and is more unique looking. We just had a vineyard in southern Arizona come to us and say, we want to do corrugated, rusted, patinaed steel for siding. Well, we don't
Oh, neat.
offer that today, but it looks really cool.
Yeah.
And so we'll have new things that come in as new treatments, and we'll show people pictures. Do you want this? This is actually very beautiful. And so that's what the product line, I think, will do. I've told people to expect like an iPhone. There's a 1 this year. There'll
Yep.
be a 2 next year, a 3 next year. So we're on Model 3 today.
Okay.
Model 1 was our models in Mesa. Model 2 is what we're building for our 75-story build, our 75-foot 6-story building
Yep.
in Mesa that we're currently building. And then our 3.0 is what Zennihome X is working on now. And what will that be? And what tweaks will we make to the plans so that that'll work? And that's what we'll actually put in the first automated factory, the Model 3 or the 3.0. And then there'll be a 4.0 and a 5.0, and hopefully we'll just get better and better and have cool new features that people can choose from.
Well, excellent. We're about out of time. I'm going to give you kind of the final word. What do you want people to take away from what Zennihome has going on here?
Jim, I think the thing that's weighing on us the most is that we really are a new category. This isn't a HUD home. This isn't a manufactured home. This is not an RV. This is not a tiny home. This is a whole new category of something that comes furnished, finished, ready to move into on the job site as an apartment, as dorms, as a hotel, any kind of multifamily product, homeless housing, affordable housing. We'll just strip things down. And then it will also be something that could go into a single story subdivision with homes of different sizes and shapes and cladding, and maybe something that uses 98% reuse of water. Imagine what that would do to Arizona that's currently concerned about losing their Colorado water allocation, which would make this desert oasis dry up. And so we have to solve the water issues, etc. So we are a different category completely. We're still trying to figure out how to describe that. So when people go, oh, Zennihome, yeah, that's that new thing that does everything different. We would like to be the Tesla of homes. So we're trying to figure out how to label that.
Yeah. Yep. Marvelous. Well, incredibly fascinating stuff, Bob. I can't thank you enough for being here. Yeah, folks, definitely go out and take a look at what Zennihome has going on. It is an amazing story.
Thank you very much, Jim.
All right, Bob. And of course, thanks to you all for being here, for tuning in. We're here every Tuesday. I can't promise that every story we bring you is going to be as fascinating and enthralling as what Bob brought today, but they will be at least somewhat fascinating and enthralling. So thanks again.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vanoski. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.